This week on the 414 Live, we'll be discussing one of the most widely used but commonly underappreciated tools at our disposal, and that is voiceovers. I'll be speaking with Darren Altman, one of the country's leading voiceover artists, who will be able to explain everything that you need to know in choosing the right voiceover artist for your project or company, the difference it can make, as well as what can go wrong. Darren will also be able to give detailed insight for current voiceover trends, how to critique potential voiceover artists, as well as discussing some stellar examples of projects where having chosen the right voiceover artist has defined entire campaigns and turned them into runaway successes. Good morning. My name's James Rostance, and this is the 414 live and exclusive each and every Thursday here on LinkedIn Live. So, if this is the first time you've joined us, welcome along, because this show is produced for you as a professional B2B marketer, for you to be able to expand and enhance your knowledge each and every week. And the way that we do that is by interviewing some of the greatest and most interesting minds in B2B marketing every week. Now, we've previously done a load of stuff on methodology and technology in B2B, but this week I thought it'd be cool to take a different route slightly and look into one of the creative tools at our disposal, and that is voiceovers, as I said in the intro just now. So to help with that and to help you get a much better understanding of how to use them, how to choose the right one, the benefits having the right one, what that can do for you and your company, that's why I thought it'd be cool to have one of the UK's leading voiceover artists on the show. And joining me now live from Worcester Park in southwest London, welcome Mr. Darren Altman.
Good afternoon, how are you doing?
Good afternoon, player. Yeah, it is actually afternoon after our delayed start. But thank you for joining us, and we're on the
pleasure.
air now. This is good.
Fab, thank you.
So Darren, as well as being one of the UK's one of the UK's top voiceover artists, you're also an impersonator as well. And yes. You were a star of Britain's Got Talent. What happened there?
So in 2016, a few years ago, I reached the live semi-finals of Britain's Got Talent performing impressions. So that was good fun. I enjoyed that. It was a lot of fun. Which
links in perfectly, of course, to your voice work. So later on in the show, if it's cool by you, I would actually like to get you to do some of your impressions.
Of course.
Nice. But tell you what, let's start things off with... what do you advise marketers for considerations to take into account when choosing the right voiceover artist for their project or company? What do you advise?
That's a very interesting question. In my experience, a voiceover will align with a brand. So different companies obviously have different people that they want to target. At a very basic level, a voice that will voice something from BMW, for example, will not be voicing necessarily, for Poundland or McDonald's or Kentucky Fried Chicken. They're two different markets. Sure. One is a high-end luxurious car, and the other's a grab a piece of chicken on the go. So they're attracting a very different clientele. So maybe the voice for BMW will have an authority, a gravitas, a certain stature in society, for example, and the voiceover will reflect that. Whereas, if you listen to ads for Kentucky Fried Chicken, KFC, or McDonald's, they're very young, they're quite cool, urban voices, to do with the market that they're trying to attract. And so I think a voiceover will align with the brand, and it's something that has to be chosen with consideration, I think.
So there's very much, by the sounds of it, different elements to a voice in choosing the style for it. So what are the different elements that you can have then? doing numbers here. What are the different elements or features you can put into a voice?
So, I mean, I've got two bits of copy that I can demonstrate, if that's all right.
Okay.
So the first one is from the BMW website. So, as a voiceover artist, I would read the script, look at the key words, the message it's trying to get across, and tailor my read to match this. So, for example, the BMW copy says, "The ultimate driving experience is not achieved through broad strokes or clever shortcuts. It requires attention to detail and unwavering commitment to perfection. Every element, every choice, and every moment must be thoroughly considered and then elevated to its most refined state." So you've got words like perfection, elevated, refined. These are words that sort of jump out at you. The second one is a radio ad. And it's much more, it's for a garden centre called Plant Perfection. So just by looking at the copy, they sent me a reference thing, a reference clip, and they wanted like a real Cockney barra boy. So if I read this in the style that they wanted, for example, "All right, it's Christmas, so let's cue the festive music. Have we got some festive treats for you here at Plant Perfections? We've got all the fruit and veg for your Christmas dinner. Yes, you do have to eat your sprouts, kids. We got plants and gift ideas galore. We've got decorations, lights, and all the trimmings. A coffee shop and even a toy shop. All right? And of course, Santa himself in the grotto." So it's a family thing. It's light. It's, two very, very different scripts, two very different clientele, if you like, and two very different voiceover styles.
Nice. And do agencies normally give you complete direction for exactly what they want, or do you get asked for input? How does it work for actually coming up with the final style of the read?
I will always, when we communicate, whether it's by email or phone, always ask for a direction in terms of the tone and style. Even if it's a corporate script or an internal thing, because I don't want to waste my own time, first of all, by reading something and editing it and sending it off and them coming back to me and saying that's not what we wanted. And also, I want to give the best read, like I said before, which aligns with what a client or a producer or a customer wants. So I will always ask them for direction in terms of tone and style, so I can be sure that I'm giving them the read that they want and they're happy with. Conversely, sorry to interrupt. Conversely, if I'm doing a radio ad, the producer will contact me and say, "Okay, Darren, for this one we want X," and it will have a bit of direction on the top of the script, and we'll try a few things, but they will have a style in mind that they want.
Okay. What would make a really good brief for you as an artist, a voiceover artist, to deliver the best possible work? How can a marketer give you the best brief? What do they include?
Well, I just think it's as we're discussing it. It's as much information as possible about the style, the tone, what they want to get across. Is it luxurious? Is it chatty? Is it conversational? Is it sexy? Is it high energy? Is it a character voice? So if they can give me as much information as possible, or even a link to a YouTube clip where they say, this is the sort of style we want, that's very helpful as well. So as much as information as possible for me to go, okay, I get what they want now, and deliver it in that style, in that read.
So the more that's the marketer or team behind it, the more information they can sit down, really think about and give you, then that's going to let you draw on your professional expertise to give them what they want and to help deliver the end result. Is that about right?
Yeah, exactly. I want them to be happy. I want my voiceover to be aligned with the message they want to get across, or this, that aligns, if they're selling something, with their brand and the people that they're trying to target. There's no point in me giving a really happy, chirpy, loud, enthusiastic read if it's, to do with medical research. That's just not going to, for example, I don't know where that came from, but do you see what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So What, in your experience, do you think a good voiceover can do for a project or company?
That's a very interesting question. I think if you've got the right voice, it will get that message across and hit the target audience. Whether it's a corporate read, whether it's a web video, an explainer video, a radio ad, it will get that message across, and it will appeal directly to the people that they want to target. Obviously, you can't be all things to all men. You know, you get male voices, female voices. Different radio stations have different target audiences, for example. So each message will be aimed at a certain demographic, and I think that a good voiceover will always get to the core of the message and appeal to the people that they want to appeal to.
Have you got any, in that case, have you got any favourite examples of a campaign where the perfect voiceover artist has been chosen, which has really made a difference to that campaign? What would you say is your favourite example?
I mean, so if I think at the top of my head, so for example, the M&S campaign, I think it was an Irish actress called Dervla Cohen. So that this isn't just food, this is M&S food. So straight away, it was that lovely, sultry, sexy voice. And, you know, you've got shots of like melting chocolate being poured onto a sponge, and it's all, and apparently that really saved Marks and Spencer's. That whole, it's not just food, it's M&S food. And it's almost an iconic voiceover now, really targeted the people they wanted to aim at, and elevated Marks and Spencer's food, that brand, to a really sexy sort of high-end status. That's one example. You know, if you turn on to Talk Sport, the vast majority of the demographic are going to be male. They're going to be blokes, builders, people driving around in vans, people that love football. And so having a lovely, sexy, luxurious voice isn't really there's going to be conflict in there. So, you know, you got, you know, Talk Sport, innit, geezer, you know, that sort of, you know, all the voices on that really are just geezers, they're blokes, and it just cuts through to their demographic. It's quite interesting, actually, when you think about it.
100%. Now, I'm just thinking of how we can transpose all of these examples, which are they're typically B2C or business to consumer examples. But for our B2B audience, I'm hoping that this is actually proving useful because depending on what you want to say to your target customers and how you want them to feel or interpret you, everything that you're describing here in terms of direction for what they should ask for, what they want their brand or company to sound like, is what ultimately you or any other voiceover artist is able to do, and let them produce a piece of communication which does all of that.
Yes.
That was a yes or no thing, I suppose. Not really a question. I was kind of working this all back for the benefit of fellow B2B marketers. So, what would you say separates a good voiceover artist from an okay one? What are the different skills involved between good and average voiceovers?
Okay, so I think a good voiceover will have a good ear. I think that's really key, and be able to take direction well. So whether it is self-recording, where you're recording yourself on your own, or you're with a producer who's directing you and telling you, you will have a good ear and be able to change your inflection, change your read to suit the tone of the script, as we've been discussing. Now, I'm not saying that every voiceover should, you know, be able to do wacky characters and accents and, you know, have a massive range. But certainly, even within, let's say, a limited range or just a natural voice, a good voiceover will be able to tailor their read, give it more energy, give it less energy, happy, you know, smiley, more serious, and be able to adapt their tone quite quickly, I think, and to understand the copy and adjust to get a style that is required. If you don't have a good ear, I think you're probably going to run into problems. If you just can't hear the difference between inflections and tones, I think you're going to run into problems as a voiceover artist.
So that because all of that plays into delivering a piece that's going to be the most effective for whatever they want, I guess.
Yes.
Is we're going right, nice, okay. Just before I ask you, I wanted to ask you about equipment, because I guess that's important. But I can see, I think your left in-ear monitor has popped out slightly.
Aha.
There we go. So
talking of good ears.
Yeah, it is an equipment. So following on from that, what about equipment then? Because surely that makes a difference to a good voiceover. So how about this? What would be a good question or series of questions for a marketer to ask a voiceover artist about their equipment? What should they be looking for?
There's a lot of discussions on forums about equipment, and a lot of people have got different views and different perspectives. I can only give my perspective, so and that is to never scrimp and save. You know, if you've got the budget, always go for the best microphone that you can that you can get your hands on. If you haven't got the budget, that's fine, but certainly don't plug in a USB or a cheap mic, which is going to make your voice sound cheap or tinny. There's just no point. You know, a chauffeur driver wouldn't turn up to a wedding in a Ford Fiesta. It's just, you know, he would turn up with a car that's of a certain status, which is going to, again, it's back to, you know, be congruent with his job. And I think that scrimping on things like microphones and having a recording environment, as you can tell, this is a beautiful studio. It's completely soundproof. I've got a double window installation. Cars can go, lorries, vans, drills. It doesn't bother me. It's completely soundproof. I've got a beautiful microphone, and the recording quality and the recording environment is like the equivalent to a London Soho studio or anywhere in the world, really. It's not completely dead, as if I'm recording in under my stairs or under some duvets. It's got a bit of life to it, but it's just a great environment that when I send my audio off to a producer or a client, I'm absolutely 100% certain they're going to be happy with the sound that they receive. And I just think that any voiceover starting out, or any client or business looking to hire a voiceover, they should always make sure that that the voiceover has got a beautiful recording quality studio. Listen to their demos. Are they happy with the sound of their demos? Does it represent what they want? And I think if the recording sounds slightly off or slightly cheap, or you think, oh, that sounds a bit nasty, or I can hear the sounds of their room, or it sounds too dead, again, it's all things to consider.
Okay.
As you would any product or service, really. You wouldn't buy cheap, necessarily. So I think the same applies, to voiceovers. Look for quality.
Indeed. Right about this point, this would be a good time for me to say to the viewers, if you have a comment or indeed a question you'd like to put to Darren about voiceovers and the whole subject around it, please do put your question in the comment section below. Now, I can see in the picture there, you've actually got a microphone, in there. I've got to ask, what microphone is that? Because I imagine this is a good one. So give us a name and model. What should people be looking for then, if they're after this Rolls Royce of
so
microphones?
So what I've got is a Neumann U87, and it's found in studios all over the world, not just for voiceover, but for recording instruments. And it's a beautiful microphone. I was lucky enough when I first started to speak to some really good friends of mine, some voiceover colleagues, and they basically told me, don't buy cheap. And there's lots of different microphones, obviously, but that's a good one. It cost, I think, the best part of £2,000, and it had a problem a little while ago. I sent it back to Germany, to the factory, and it came back all tested, and it's a beautiful, beautiful mic, and it gives a good, honest representation of my voice, which is important as well.
So the Neumann U87 is the one to be.
Yes, that's what I've got. There are other Neumanns. There are like TLM 103 and 102, but female voiceovers will not necessarily want that microphone because it doesn't give the best representation of their voice. They'd want a different microphone to maybe warm their voice, or if a female voiceover has got maybe a higher pitch, they'll want a microphone that gives the best reflection of that as well.
So that's equipment nicely covered, actually. Oh, and I wanted to just point out there something I picked up. You mentioned, we're talking about rather, the sound environment that you record in. So you've, by the sounds of it, gone to a lot of effort to insulate your area. So you want a sound insulated environment, but one that's not too sound insulated. Have I got that right?
Yeah, you want it to sort of breathe, if I could use that. There are voiceovers that have got very closed spaces, and with a lot of foam and duvets and stuff around them, and that's sort of fine. It means that their voice isn't bouncing around the room, which isn't a good sound, but it can sound boxy, and producers have said to me, that you've got to get a balance, between being absolutely dead and muffled and boxy, and just have the room breathe a little bit. So I've had a whole office converted. I've got my computer here, my Mac. I've got a nice big natural light. I've got acoustic tiles, but it's not closed in. It doesn't sound as if I'm in a cupboard. So it's just getting a nice balance.
Right. That's nicely described.
And also the other thing is, if you're doing character stuff, for example, I do a lot of ads, and say they want me to voice a script, and at the end of that, they'll take my voice and they'll put a lot of sound effects, and maybe they want me to sound like I'm walking in a street, or be in a kitchen, or be in a jungle. If they can hear the sound of my voice bouncing all over my bedroom, for example, they're not going to be able to work with that, which is interesting. You have to think about from a producer's point of view as well.
With you, okay. And earlier on, when we did the introduction, I mentioned the fact that, of course, you were a star of Britain's Got Talent.
Star,
absolutely. No, and it was actually impressions, wasn't it, that you do? So as well as voiceovers, you also do impressions. Could you do some for us, or who are your favourites right now that you like to do?
Well, as we record this, it's polling day, my friends, and I have been asked to do a lot of Boris for a lot of different campaigns. Yes. So that's one voice I've been asked to do a lot recently, which is great for me.
That is really good. So I'm guessing that was Boris Johnson?
In a way.
Yeah. Nice. And can you do the other chap?
Well, one thing I have, when doing Jeremy Corbyn, he has a very quiet, almost throws the end of his words.
But he wasn't someone that I'd actually tried. But we did these deep fake videos. Have you seen these? And so they got me into a studio in London, filmed me, recorded me, and they just wanted my mouth, which they superimposed onto Boris. And we did one as Jeremy and superimposed that onto Jeremy Corbyn. And that was very interesting. And we found that when he's not sort of at a rally and really going for it, his natural voice is very, very so that was good. That was and I'll always try different voices, and if producers want me to be someone, I'll have a go, and if I don't think I can get anywhere near it, I'll just say I'm sorry, I can't really do that. But I will always do my best to study and to work out where it sits in my head and my throat. And some voices have a rasp, some there's little things like when I do Boris, his S's. Can you see what I'm doing? Yes. So, and he has a slight underbite on words as well. So that helps. It's mouth movements can really help sort of get into the detail, the minutiae.
Really? And that makes sense then as to why they took the video then of your mouth whilst you're doing these deep fake videos.
Yeah.
To capture that. Right. Nice.
And so when you're doing Gordon, for example, it helps to really get the facial gestures. So all of that, it comes across in the. So if I have a script and I'm here on my own and they want, say, a Gordon Ramsay, I will do this. Hey, young man, well done. And I'll be doing this because I can't do Gordon Ramsay and not do this
with the hand. Okay, yeah, I like that. I was just going to ask actually because I mean, yeah, today's election day, and goodness knows I can't wait for it to be Friday, for it to be all over, and hopefully never ever talk about politics again for at least another 2 weeks. So, as of tomorrow, no more politics. That'll be a wonderful thing. Who are your top 3 non-political impressions that you do?
I get asked to do Sir David Attenborough quite a lot, where people want a very soft, whispered sound for their video. So I get asked to do him a lot. Car dealerships want me to sound like JC. No, not Jesus Christ. Jeremy Clarkson. So I get asked to do him quite a lot. I'm also get asked to do Morgan Freeman quite a lot, which is a fun one to do. And I also doing him on stage when I'm performing. So yeah, it's a wide range. It's never a dull moment.
Indeed, I love the Jeremy Clarkson one. That was good, brilliant. So let me ask you just one more before we wrap. What would you say are the trends right now in the world of voiceovers for commercials, but also for, say, corporate videos as well? What are the trends?
Yeah, you do hear. I mean, went through a stage of hearing Ewan McGregor and Sean Bean. Sort of regional accents were big, and you still do get that. I've noticed that there's quite a sound for. In terms of promos for BBC and Sky and BT, they've got this real sort of edgy northern voice. There are 2 that spring to mind. One is Ralph Ineson, who played Chris Finch in The Office. He's everywhere. He's like the Renault Dacia. He's that. And what else does he do? Does he do the Halifax or something? He's got a really rich Lancashire accent. There's another guy called Craig Kelly who's got a really raspy, cool sounding northern accent. So that seems to be a la mode, stylistically, a thing at the moment.
I know the character actually. What did you say? Ralph Little, who played Finchy in the British version of The Office. Can you do an impression of him as well? Well, as close as you can.
Ralph Ineson.
No, not Ralph. Ralph Little. Sorry. The northern guy.
Ralph Little. I think you're getting your. He's.
Am I getting my names mixed up? Sorry.
Ralph Little was in. What's that thing with what's her face? Well, they sit on the sofa. That's Ralph Little.
Oh, God,
I've forgotten his
Who is it that
name.
You said just? The one who plays Chris Finch?
Yeah, so he's got a sort of really deep Lancashire accent. He sort of sits at the back of the throat. The Fiat Dacia. It's all like that, isn't it? Like sort of right at the back of the throat. He's got really deep, and he does promos for Talk Sport. Coming up on Talk Sport. It's that real deep there. That's where he is. My voice has just dropped.
So thank you for that. That was just good. With the trends of the way things are going, then. So is it that they're going back to regional accents again? Is that the state of play?
What I get asked a lot, and voiceovers do tend to get asked a lot, is they don't want voiceover. They want a very natural conversational read, like you're chatting, and that's something that is
can be harder than it thinks, actually. When I first started my journey into voiceovers, I used to sort of have that default voiceover mode where everything was in the back of the throat and sounded a little like this. And I think I sounded like an idiot. So I almost had to unlearn that and just learn to speak naturally and very conversationally, which is what a lot of people want. If you see a script, sometimes maybe stuttering or stopping and starting and talking like I'm talking to you, as opposed to reading every word for what it is. And do you see what I mean? A very natural conversational read, and people like that. It gives credibility, it gives warmth, I think, and a very personable style, which a lot of companies, again, as we said earlier, may want to get across to their audience. Well, as opposed to being dictated to.
I can really relate to that, actually, and in fact, as I'm sure that the viewers can, because when copywriting, it's very tempting to start writing in corporate speak and using words that you would never normally use when talking to a normal person. But it sounds like in the voiceover world, then you're up against a similar thing where it might be tempting to start talking like a voiceover man, but you're saying that actually what you're being asked for is for more natural, authentic sounding voices. Is that about right?
Yeah, and occasionally, you know, I'll do something, edit it, read it, send it off, and it'll come back. It sounds a little bit forced, Darren. Can we just have a more natural read? And that's fine. I'll do it again, and I'll adjust my tone and my style and the volume and everything like that to give them the read that they want. Also, one thing that you just touched upon, when writing copy, if you think how you would speak, so I wouldn't change a script all the time, but occasionally I will naturally truncate words. They are becomes there, you know, he is, he's. And I will do that because we talk like that. And if you said talk like that, I just dropped the T. I didn't say talk like that. It sounds forced. So a lot of times dropping a T in at the end of a word isn't bad grammar. It's talking like you talk to your mate. See, that's just being natural. I wouldn't say that's you talking to your mate in a public house. So just trying to be as genuine and as believable without being unaffected as possible.
Cool. Well, in that case, I should say that, thank you very much for joining us. But before we go, could you give us your top 3 pointers for what to look for in a voiceover artist? And let's start with that first of all. So, top 3 pointers for what to look for in a voiceover artist in choosing the right one.
So whether you think about whether you want a male or a female, I would say. Think about the message you want to get across. Whether it's advertising or about your brand, who you're trying to target, and choose your voiceover wisely. Don't just say we need a voiceover artist, because it's casting the net too wide. Have a very clear vision and a sound in your head about what you want that voiceover to say about your brand or your service or your product. I would say that's not top 3, but there's a few things in there to consider. And also, when choosing one, again, you know, make sure that they're of a certain standard, that they've got the ability to be directed and to give you exactly what you want. There's no point in choosing a voiceover that can't take direction and has limited ability to alter their read to suit you, because you're hiring. You know, when people want me, they're hiring me, and it's my duty to give them the best representation of my voice and to represent their brand or service as they need it to be.
Fantastic. Well, Darren Altman, live from Worcester Park in southwest London. Thank you very much for joining us on the show live this morning.
It's been a pleasure. Thank you so much. Hope that was of use.
It was, thank you.
Interesting.
And 100%. But you know what would really make it is if Gordon Ramsay could have the final word and to make a suggestion for our viewers what to have for lunch today. So could you sign off?
Boy, hey, look at me. Big boy, yes. Hey, oi, make some scrambled eggs, yes, on toast. Hey, and if you want to, contact Darren, darrenaltman.com. A little plug.
Brilliant. Just
Sorry, that was crude.
No, hey, that was spot on. Darren, thank you very much for joining us this morning. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
And if you've enjoyed watching, thank you for joining us first of all, but if you've enjoyed watching, then please do subscribe to the 414 podcast on your favourite podcasting app and search for the 414 on YouTube, because that's where all of our episodes are kept. And if you feel so inclined, subscribe to our YouTube channel as well. In the meantime, I've been James Rostance. Thank you for watching. I'll tell you when to cut it.